I watched my wife Amara pack her designer bags while laughing on the phone with Jimmy, the man she thought I didn't know about. She glanced at me sitting quietly in the corner of our bedroom, and her expression twisted with the same disgust I'd seen for months. "Yes, baby, I'm finally leaving this worthless loser," she whispered into her phone, thinking I couldn't hear. "William can't even afford to fix our broken air conditioner. I'm done pretending to love this failure." Everyone thought I was about to lose everything. My wife was abandoning me for my former best friend Jimmy, a successful lawyer who owned 3 luxury cars and a penthouse downtown. All our mutual friends sided with them, whispering about how Amara deserved better than a struggling small business owner who could barely pay rent. She hung up and turned to me with false sympathy. "William, I've tried to make this marriage work, but I can't live like this anymore. You're 32 and still haven't achieved anything meaningful. Jimmy offered me the life I actually deserve." I nodded silently, staring at my hands. Inside, I was desperately trying to hide the smile threatening to break across my face. Because what Amara didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I had been planning this moment for 6 months. Every harsh word, every humiliation, every night she came home late smelling like Jimmy's cologne had been carefully documented and prepared for. Tomorrow morning, she would discover that the worthless failure she was leaving had quietly built a multi-million-dollar empire. The struggling business she mocked was actually a front for the most successful tech startup in the city. And the broken air conditioner she complained about would be the least of her problems. "Take whatever you want," I said softly, gesturing at her clothes and jewelry. "I understand." She paused, perhaps expecting me to beg or fight for our marriage. When I didn't, her expression hardened with contempt. "You're not even going to try to stop me? God, you really are pathetic." As she dragged her suitcases toward the door, I couldn't help but think about how perfectly everything had fallen into place. Amara thought she was walking away from poverty into luxury. In reality, she was about to discover that she had just abandoned the wealthiest man she would ever know. 3 years earlier, I had been exactly the man Amara married. William Thompson, a hopeful entrepreneur with big dreams and an empty bank account. I ran a small computer repair shop that barely covered our rent, spent my evenings coding mobile apps that never sold, and genuinely believed that love and determination could overcome financial struggles. Amara had been different then, beautiful, supportive, and seemingly content with our modest life. She worked as a marketing coordinator at a local firm, earned twice my income, and never complained when I spent our grocery money on business equipment. We lived in a tiny apartment above my shop, shared one car, and planned our future around slow, steady growth. "I believe in you, William," she used to say, massaging my shoulders after long days of frustrated coding. "Your breakthrough is coming, I can feel it." Jimmy Martinez had been my college roommate and closest friend. A brilliant law student who graduated at the top of his class, passed the bar exam on his first try, and immediately landed a position at the city's most prestigious firm. While I struggled with failed startups, Jimmy bought his first BMW. While I stressed about rent, Jimmy moved into a downtown penthouse. But he never made me feel inferior. Jimmy would stop by my shop regularly, bringing expensive coffee and listening to my latest business ideas with genuine interest. He treated Amara with respectful friendliness, always including both of us in his social events and introducing us to his wealthy colleagues as if we belonged in their world. "You've got something special, brother," Jimmy would tell me during his visits. "I can see the vision in your head. When you make it big, remember us little people." Naina Patel had been our neighbor and Amara's closest friend, a software engineer at a major tech corporation. She earned 6 figures but lived simply in the apartment next to ours. Naina was quiet, intelligent, and had harbored feelings for me that I remained oblivious to throughout my marriage. She would often help me troubleshoot coding problems, her expertise far exceeding mine. While Amara grew increasingly impatient with my technical struggles, Naina would spend hours explaining complex algorithms and suggesting optimizations to my apps. "William, you're thinking too small," she said one evening, reviewing my latest project. "This food delivery concept has potential, but you need to scale the back-end architecture. I could help you build something actually marketable." The first crack in my marriage appeared 18 months ago. Amara had been promoted to senior marketing manager, her salary jumping significantly. Suddenly, our income disparity became more pronounced, and her patience with my hobbyist approach to business began wearing thin. William, we're in our 30s, she said after a particularly disappointing month for my shop. I want to buy a house, have children, build a real life. How long am I supposed to wait for your success? Jimmy's visits became more frequent around this time. He had made partner at his firm, purchased a second car, and started dating models and socialites whose photos filled his Instagram. When he looked at our cramped apartment, I began noticing a subtle pity in his eyes. Maybe it's time to be realistic, man, he suggested gently. The shop is steady income, Amara makes good money, you could have a comfortable middle-class life without chasing these startup dreams. But Naina saw something different. She had been analyzing my latest app, a simple productivity tool I had built in my spare time. Her excitement was palpable as she showed me user engagement statistics I hadn't even known how to track. William, do you realize what you've created? She said, her laptop screen filled with analytics dashboards. This app has organic viral potential. The user retention rate is extraordinary. With proper marketing and infrastructure investment, this could be massive. I stared at the numbers, not understanding their significance. It's just a basic task manager, Naina. Nothing revolutionary. Exactly, she smiled. Sometimes the best products are simple solutions that people actually use. I know investors who would fund this immediately. That conversation changed everything. Within weeks, Naina had introduced me to her network of venture capitalists and tech executives. My simple productivity app caught the attention of a major investment firm. They offered me $2 million for 40% equity, with the condition that I scale operations immediately. I signed the deal in secret, using Naina's downtown address as my business headquarters to avoid suspicion. Officially, I still ran my computer repair shop. Privately, I was building one of the fastest-growing productivity platforms in the mobile app ecosystem. The secrecy was intentional. I wanted to see how Amara and Jimmy would treat me when they believed I was still struggling. Their true characters emerged gradually, then accelerated dramatically. Amara grew colder, more critical, openly embarrassed by my failure. She stopped wearing her wedding ring to work events, claiming it sent the wrong message about her personal brand. She began staying out late, claiming networking events and work obligations that I later discovered were dinner dates. Jimmy's friendship shifted too. His visits became less frequent, his advice more condescending. When Amara complained about our financial situation, Jimmy would nod sympathetically and suggest she deserved better. He started making subtle moves, offering to take her to expensive restaurants, as friends, and buying her gifts I supposedly couldn't afford. Only Naina knew the truth. She helped me navigate the business development, introduced me to key partners, and watched with sad eyes as my marriage crumbled. She never tried to interfere or reveal my secret, understanding that I needed to discover Amara's true feelings naturally. 6 months ago, I had concrete proof of their affair. Photos, text messages, hotel receipts. But instead of confronting them, I decided to let the situation play out completely. I wanted Amara to make her choice based on what she believed about my worth. Now, watching her pack her belongings while planning her escape to Jimmy's luxury lifestyle, I realized my strategy had worked perfectly. The morning after Amara left, I woke up alone in our bed for the first time in 3 years. The silence felt different than expected, not lonely or devastating, but strangely peaceful. I made coffee using the expensive machine she had complained about, since I supposedly couldn't afford to replace our cheap appliances, and checked my phone. 17 missed calls from Amara, 12 from Jimmy, 3 text messages from her that escalated from confident to confused to panicked. William, I hope you understand this is for the best. I'll send someone for my remaining things next week. Why aren't you answering? I left some important documents there. William, call me back right now, something is wrong. I smiled and deleted the messages without responding. Then I called Naina. She found out? Naina asked immediately. Not yet, but she will today. The divorce papers include full financial disclosure. Naina was quiet for a moment. Are you sure about this approach? You could have just revealed everything months ago. No, I said firmly. This way, she made her choice based on who she thought I was. Now she has to live with the consequences of that choice. Around noon, my phone exploded with calls. I had instructed my lawyer to serve divorce papers to Amara at Jimmy's penthouse, where she had spent the night. The financial disclosure section would have been quite illuminating. Net worth, $47.2 million. Primary asset, Thompson Productivity Solutions, valued at $52 million following our recent Series B funding round. Monthly income, $890,000. Liquid assets, $3.1 million. The same afternoon, Jimmy arrived at my shop. His usual confident demeanor had been replaced by confusion and anger. He pushed through the door so aggressively that the bell nearly flew off its hinge. "What the hell is this, William?" He slammed the divorce papers on my counter. "Some kind of joke?" I looked up from the computer I was repairing, maintaining the same calm expression I had worn for months. "Which part seems funny to you?" "This financial disclosure is obviously fake. You're claiming to be worth $50 million? Come on, man, we've been friends for 15 years, I know exactly how much money you don't have." "Do you?" I set down my screwdriver and really looked at him for the first time. Jimmy had always been handsome in an obvious way: tall, athletic, perfectly styled hair, expensive suits that screamed success. But now I could see the desperation behind his facade. The slight tremor in his hands, the way his eyes darted around my modest shop as if searching for hidden cameras. "William, if you're trying to hurt Amara with false documents, that's fraud. I'm a lawyer, I could have you arrested." "You're absolutely right," I agreed. "Filing false financial statements in divorce proceedings is a serious crime. Good thing mine are completely accurate." Jimmy's confusion deepened. "This is insane. You run a computer repair shop, you drive a 10-year-old Honda. Last month you told Amara you couldn't afford to fix your air conditioner." I told her a lot of things. I stood up, suddenly aware that I was slightly taller than Jimmy despite his imposing presence. Most of them were true. I couldn't afford to fix the air conditioner from my shop income. I drive an old Honda because I like it, and I do run a computer repair shop. Then how? I also run Thompson Productivity Solutions. Maybe you've heard of it? We just secured $30 million in Series B funding. Our Taskmaster app has 4 million active users. Forbes called us the fastest growing productivity platform in North America. The color drained from Jimmy's face. He pulled out his phone, fingers fumbling as he searched for my company. I watched his expression change as he found our website, our press releases, our investor announcements. His hands shook as he scrolled through articles about our success. "This is impossible," he whispered. "When did this happen?" 18 months ago, we got our first investment. 6 months ago, we hit profitability. 3 months ago, we were valued at $52 million. Last week, Google offered to acquire us for $80 million. Jimmy stared at me as if I had revealed myself to be an alien. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" "I told Naina. She's been helping me build the company. As for everyone else," I shrugged, "I wanted to see who my real friends were." "William, you have to understand." "I understand perfectly." I picked up my screwdriver and returned to the computer repair. "You thought I was a failure, so you decided to steal my wife. Amara thought I was worthless, so she decided to leave me for someone successful. Both of you made your choices based on what you believed about my value." Jimmy slumped into the chair across from my workbench. If you had known I was wealthy, you would have treated me differently, which proves exactly what kind of people you are." The door chimed again, and Amara rushed in. She looked frenzied, her usually perfect hair disheveled, her makeup smeared from crying. She saw Jimmy and immediately turned to me with desperate eyes. "William, please tell me this is some kind of mistake. The lawyer said you're worth $50 million. That can't be real." I didn't look up from my work. "The divorce papers are accurate." "But how? When? We live together. I know everything about your life. You know everything I wanted you to know." Amara grabbed my arm, forcing me to meet her eyes. "William, if this is true, then we can work this out. I made a mistake. I was just scared about our financial future, but if you're actually successful..." "Stop." I gently removed her hand from my arm. "Yesterday you called me a worthless failure. You said you were embarrassed to be married to me. You told Jimmy you deserved better than someone who couldn't even afford basic home repairs. I was upset. I didn't mean those things. You meant every word, and more importantly, you acted on those feelings. You've been sleeping with Jimmy for 4 months. Jimmy stood up abruptly. "William, that's not how it happened." Amara was lonely, confused about her future. "I was just supporting a friend going through a difficult time." I laughed, the sound echoing strangely in the small shop. "Supporting her right into your bed. Very noble, Jimmy." Amara's face crumpled. "William, I love you. I've always loved you. I just got scared when it seemed like we would never have financial security. But now that I know you're successful, now that you know I'm wealthy, you're interested again." I closed the computer I was working on and gave her my full attention. Tell me, Amara, what if I lose this money tomorrow? What if the company fails, or the market crashes, or I make bad investments? Would you still want to work things out? She hesitated for just a moment, but it was enough. Of course I would. Money isn't everything. But yesterday it was everything. Yesterday, my lack of visible wealth was sufficient reason to abandon our marriage. Jimmy stepped forward, his lawyer instincts kicking in. William, people make mistakes. Amara recognizes that she handled this poorly, but that doesn't mean the marriage can't be saved. I looked at both of them, these two people who had been the center of my world for years, and felt nothing but pity. The marriage ended the moment Amara decided I wasn't worth fighting for. The friendship ended the moment you decided to take advantage of her disappointment. Please, Amara whispered. Give me another chance. That evening, I sat alone in the apartment that had felt too small for 3 years, but now seemed cavernous. Amara's absence created physical gaps everywhere, her coffee mug missing from the sink, her shoes gone from the entryway. The closet half empty, hangers swaying like skeletal remains of our shared life. For the first time since discovering their affair, I allowed myself to feel the full weight of what I was losing. Not just Amara, but the version of myself that had believed love could survive anything. The man who had worked 16-hour days, not just for success, but to build something worthy of her dreams. My phone buzzed constantly. Text messages from mutual friends who had heard about the divorce and my sudden wealth. Their tones ranged from shock to barely concealed greed, each one carefully calculating how they might benefit from renewed friendship with the secret millionaire. William, I had no idea you were doing so well. We should grab drinks and catch up. Dude, why didn't you tell us about your company? I could have invested early. Can't believe Amara left right before finding out you're loaded. That's rough, man. None of them asked how I was feeling. None questioned whether I might be hurt or lonely or struggling with the betrayal. They only saw dollar signs and opportunity. I walked to the window overlooking the street where Jimmy and I had spent countless evenings talking about our futures. He had always been the successful one, the example I measured myself against. Even when I surpassed his net worth by thousands of %, part of me still saw him as the golden boy who had everything figured out. The realization hit me like cold water. I had built an empire partly to prove I was worthy of the respect Jimmy gave naturally to everyone else. My success wasn't just about financial security or creative fulfillment, it was about finally being good enough for the people who mattered to me. But now, those people had revealed their true nature. Amara's love had been conditional on my ability to provide the lifestyle she wanted. Jimmy's friendship had been patronizing charity extended to someone he viewed as perpetually unsuccessful. When they thought I was struggling, they felt justified in betraying me. My laptop chimed with a video call from Nina. I accepted, and her concerned face filled the screen. You look terrible, she said immediately. Thanks, that's exactly what every heartbroken millionaire wants to hear. William, are you okay, really? The simple question, asked with genuine care rather than curiosity about my wealth, nearly broke me. I don't know. I thought I wanted this revenge. I planned it for months, but now that it's happening, I just feel empty. Regret? No. Not regret exactly, more like grief. I'm mourning the person I thought Amara was, the friend I thought Jimmy was, the marriage I believed we had. Nina was quiet for a moment. The person you thought Amara was, maybe she was real at some point. People change when they're scared or desperate. Are you defending her? I'm trying to help you process this without destroying yourself. Yes, she betrayed you. Yes, Jimmy violated your friendship, but you're not just losing them, you're losing your faith in people. She was right, the worst part wasn't Amara leaving or Jimmy's betrayal, it was the creeping suspicion that everyone's loyalty had a price point, that human connection was just another transaction, and I had finally accumulated enough wealth to purchase the relationships I wanted. What if I had revealed my success 6 months ago? I asked. Would Amara have stayed faithful? Would Jimmy have kept his hands off my wife? Maybe, but then you'd never know if they loved you or your bank account. And now I know Tiyot. Hey, didn't love me at all. No, Nina said firmly. Now you know they loved the wrong version of you. There's a difference. Over the next few days, the emotional siege intensified. Amara began showing up at my shop during business hours, creating scenes that drove away customers. She would cry publicly, begging for forgiveness and explaining to anyone who would listen that she had made a terrible mistake. He's worth $50 million, she told Mrs. Chen, my elderly regular customer. $50 million. And I left him because I thought he was poor. How stupid am I? Mrs. Chen, who had been bringing her ancient laptop to me for years, looked disgusted. Very stupid. William is good man, money doesn't change that. Jimmy tried a different approach. He sent mutual friends to advocate for reconciliation, painting himself as the noble friend who had stepped aside once he realized the truth. According to his narrative, he had been protecting Amara from what appeared to be a hopeless marriage, but now that my success was revealed, he wanted nothing more than to see us reunited. Jimmy feels terrible about the whole thing, said Marcus, our former college roommate. He says he was just trying to help Amara through a rough patch. If he had known about your company, he never would have gotten involved. So Jimmy's friendship is conditional on my net worth? That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. When he thought I was struggling, my marriage was fair game. Now that I'm wealthy, suddenly I deserve respect. The most painful part was discovering how many people had known about the affair. Our social circle had watched Jimmy and Amara grow closer, had seen them at restaurants and events together, had noticed her wedding ring disappearing from work functions, but because they viewed me as the unsuccessful member of our group, they hadn't felt obligated to warn me. We didn't want to interfere, explained Sarah, Amara's former co-worker. And honestly, we thought maybe Amara deserved Ved to be happy. You seemed like you were holding her back. Holding her back from what? From the life she wanted. Nice house, financial security, social status. Jimmy could give her those things. I stared at Sarah, trying to understand her logic. So because you thought I was poor, my marriage was expendable? That's not what I said. It's exactly what you said. Even more disturbing was the sudden flood of romantic interest from women who had previously ignored me. My dating apps, which had been dormant throughout my marriage, filled with messages from matches who had clearly researched my company and net worth. I saw your article in Forbes, so impressive, I'd love to hear about your entrepreneurial journey over dinner. Taskmaster is literally my favorite app. What are the chances we could grab coffee and talk about productivity strategies? Hi William, I work in marketing and would love to discuss potential collaborations. Also, you're really cute. None of them had expressed interest when I was just a computer repair shop owner. Their attraction was purely transactional, calculated based on my financial status rather than any genuine connection. The loneliness was suffocating. I had achieved everything I had dreamed of professionally, but lost everyone I had wanted to share it with personally. 2 weeks after serving the divorce papers, I received an unexpected call from my lawyer. His voice carried an urgency that immediately put me on alert. William, we need to meet immediately. There's been a development. An hour later, I sat in his downtown office while he spread documents across his mahogany desk. Financial records, legal filings, investigation reports, the paper trail of my marriage's destruction. Your wife has filed a counter-petition, he said grimly. She's claiming that you hid assets during the marriage and that she's entitled to half of everything, including your company. I laughed bitterly. She left me because she thought I was broke. Now she wants half of the wealth she didn't know existed? It gets worse. She's also claiming that Jimmy Martinez provided legal consultation during your business formation, making him a potential partner entitled to compensation. My blood ran cold. That's impossible. Jimmy had no involvement in my company. Are you certain? Because they've produced some interesting evidence. He handed me a folder containing photographs and documents I had never seen before. Pictures of Jimmy and me at coffee shops, time-stamped during the early months of my company's development. Email threads, discussing business strategy, legal consultation invoices with Jimmy's firm's letterhead. I never hired Jimmy for legal work. These emails, I didn't write them. The metadata suggests otherwise, and the invoices show payments from your business account to his firm. My mind raced. Someone had been documenting fake interactions between Jimmy and me, creating a paper trail that suggested he had been instrumental in my company's formation. The photographs were real, but the context was fabricated. Our casual friend meetings had been reframed as professional consultations. Who would have access to create this kind of evidence? My lawyer's expression was grave. Someone with inside knowledge of your business timeline, access to your email systems, and the technical expertise to manipulate digital records. The answer hit me like physical blow. There was only one person who fit that description perfectly. Nina. That evening, I confronted her at her apartment. She answered the door with the same warm smile she had worn throughout our friendship, but something in her eyes had changed, a hardness I had never noticed before. "William, what a surprise, come in." Her living room looked different somehow, more expensive furniture, artwork I didn't remember, a new laptop setup that suggested serious financial upgrades. On her coffee table lay legal documents and business files. "Nice place," I said carefully. "New decorating?" "A few upgrades. My consulting work has been lucrative lately." "Consulting work?" Naina's smile became predatory. "I've been helping Amara understand her legal rights. Fascinating case, actually. A wife discovering that her husband built a secret empire using community property resources." The betrayal hit harder than Amara's affair or Jimmy's manipulation. Naina had been my closest ally, the only person who knew the truth about my success. She had helped me build the company, introduced me to investors, guided every major decision. "You're working with them." "I'm working for myself." She settled into her chair with casual confidence. "Do you know how much unpaid labor I contributed to your company, William? Hundreds of hours of coding, system architecture, investor introductions. I was instrumental in your success. I offered you equity multiple times. You refused. Because I believed you when you said we were friends. I thought loyalty meant more than stock options." Her voice hardened. "But watching you plan this elaborate revenge against Amara, I realized you're just as calculating as everyone else. So you decided to destroy me?" "I decided to get what I deserve. 50% of Thompson Productivity Solutions belongs to me. I have documentation proving my technical contributions, evidence of Jimmy's legal consultation, and witness testimony about the community property issues." I stared at this woman I had trusted completely. The fake emails, the manipulated evidence, that was you? I prefer to think of it as correcting the historical record. Jimmy did provide valuable advice during our coffee meetings, even if it wasn't formally documented. Amara did contribute to the household expenses that supported your business development, and I did build the technical foundation of your empire. Our coffee meetings were personal conversations between friends. Perspective is everything. From a legal standpoint, those conversations could be interpreted as professional consultations. My phone buzzed with a text message. Naina glanced at it and smiled. "Ah, that's probably Jimmy confirming that the investment banker meetings are set for tomorrow. We're exploring options for liquidating your company assets. Much easier to divide cash than complex equity structures." The scope of their conspiracy was breathtaking. They hadn't just stolen my wife and betrayed my friendship, they had spent weeks building a legal framework to steal my life's work. "Why?" I asked quietly. "Because you proved that love and loyalty are luxuries only poor people can afford. Rich people understand that everything is transactional." "I'm just adapting to your philosophy." The next morning, I sat in my lawyer's office, surrounded by the evidence of the most sophisticated betrayal I could have imagined. Naina hadn't just created false documentation, she had built an airtight legal case that could potentially destroy everything I had worked for. "They're requesting an emergency hearing," my lawyer explained. "The judge will review their claims about hidden assets, community property violations, and Jimmy's alleged partnership stake. If they succeed, you could lose controlling interest in your own company." "What are our options?" "Limited. The evidence appears authentic, the timeline matches their narrative, and Naina's technical expertise gives credibility to their claims. Your best hope is proving that the documentation was fabricated, but that could take months of forensic analysis." I left his office feeling defeated for the first time since discovering Amara's affair. My carefully planned revenge had backfired spectacularly. Instead of teaching them about loyalty and consequences, I had inadvertently provided them with the weapons to destroy me. But as I walked back to my shop, something Naina had said kept bothering me. She had mentioned witness testimony about community property issues. Who could possibly testify about the early days of my company development besides the three conspirators themselves? I spent the afternoon reviewing every document, every email, every interaction from the past 18 months. Naina had been present for most major business decisions, but she hadn't been the only witness to my work habits and financial situation. Mrs. Chen. She had been coming to my shop twice a week for 3 years, watching me work late into the night on coding projects. She had seen my progression from simple computer repairs to sophisticated software development. She had witnessed my marriage's deterioration and Amara's growing absence from the shop. Mr. Park from the apartment next door had complained regularly about my late-night typing and phone calls with investors. His noise complaints were documented with our building management, creating a timeline of my business activities. Sarah Martinez, ironically, Jimmy's sister, worked at the coffee shop where I had met with early investors. She had served us countless times, overhearing conversations about funding rounds and technical specifications. Most importantly, I realized that my bank records would show exactly how my company had been funded. Every investor payment, every business expense, every dollar that had flowed through my accounts was documented with timestamps and transaction details that couldn't be manipulated. I called my lawyer immediately. I need you to subpoena my complete banking history for the past 2 years. Also, I want to depose every small business owner on this street, my building manager, and anyone who can testify about my work schedule and business activities. William, that's going to be expensive and time-consuming. Do it, and I want to schedule depositions with Amara, Jimmy, and Naina for tomorrow. I'm calling their bluff. The emergency hearing was scheduled for Friday morning. By Thursday evening, I had assembled a mountain of evidence that told the real story of my company's development. Bank statements showing that every dollar invested in Thompson Productivity Solutions had come from legitimate investor funding, not community property. Witness statements from neighbors, customers, and local business owners documenting my work habits and financial situation. Phone records showing the actual timeline of my conversations with investors and technical consultants. Most damaging to their case, I had discovered that Naina had made a critical error. In creating the fake email threads with Jimmy, she had used IP addresses and metadata that placed their supposed business meetings at times when Jimmy was provably in court or other documented locations. Her technical expertise had betrayed her. She had been too clever, creating evidence that was more detailed than reality. The morning of the hearing, I arrived at the courthouse with 3 boxes of documentation and a confidence I hadn't felt in weeks. Amara, Jimmy, and Naina sat together at the plaintiff's table, whispering urgently with their legal team. Judge Patricia Morrison, a stern woman in her 60s, reviewed the preliminary motions with obvious irritation. This is a highly unusual case. The plaintiffs are claiming that Mr. Thompson concealed major assets during his marriage, while simultaneously arguing that 2 other parties have ownership stakes in those assets. These claims appear contradictory. Amara's lawyer stood first. Your Honor, Mrs. Thompson was unaware of her husband's business success because he deliberately concealed his activities. During their marriage, she contributed financially to household expenses that supported his business development, entitling her to community property rights. And Mr. Martinez's claim? Jimmy's lawyer cleared his throat nervously. Mr. Martinez provided legal consultation during the critical early stages of Thompson Productivity Solutions. His strategic advice was instrumental in the company's success, creating a partnership relationship that was never properly documented. Judge Morrison looked skeptical. Ms. Patel, what is your role in these proceedings? Naina's lawyer answered smoothly. Ms. Patel provided extensive technical consulting and development services. She was effectively co-founder of the company but was never PR'd. Properly compensated for her contributions. I see. Mr. Thompson, how do you respond to these claims? I stood, surprising everyone by representing myself. Your Honor, I'd like to present evidence that will demonstrate the fraudulent nature of these claims. For the next hour, I systematically destroyed their case. I presented bank records showing that Amara had contributed exactly $3,247 to household expenses during our marriage, while my company had required $180,000 in initial development costs, all funded by external investors. I showed phone records proving that Jimmy's supposed legal consultations had occurred while he was in court representing other clients. I presented witness testimony from neighbors documenting that Naina had visited my apartment frequently but had never participated in any business meetings or client interactions. But the most devastating evidence was a security camera recording from the coffee shop where Jimmy and I had supposedly conducted business meetings. The timestamp showed us laughing and talking about sports, not discussing legal strategies. In one particularly damning segment, Jimmy was clearly visible telling me about a woman he was dating, hardly the conversation of a business partner. Furthermore, Your Honor, I have evidence that the plaintiffs conspired to create false documentation supporting their claims. I presented the metadata analysis showing that the fake emails had been created weeks after my company's success became public, not during the alleged consultation period. The IP addresses traced back to Naina's apartment, and the digital signatures were inconsistent with legitimate business communications. Judge Morrison's expression grew increasingly stern as the evidence mounted. This appears to be a coordinated attempt to defraud Mr. Thompson of his legitimate business assets. Amara's lawyer tried to salvage the situation. Your Honor, even if some of the documentation is questionable, the underlying principle remains valid. Mrs. Thompson supported her husband during the development period. With $3,000 over 3 years, the judge interrupted. Mr. Thompson's evidence shows he invested $180,000 of investor funding into business development. The mathematical relationship doesn't support a community property claim. Jimmy's lawyer attempted a different approach. The informal nature of Mr. Martinez's consultation doesn't negate its value. Informal consultation? Judge Morrison's voice rose. The evidence suggests that what you're calling consultation was actually casual conversation between friends about sports and dating. Are you seriously arguing that discussing basketball scores constitutes legal partnership? The final blow came when I presented Naina's own social media posts from the relevant time period. Her Instagram and Facebook accounts showed her working at her regular job, attending social events, and posting about her single lifestyle. Nowhere was there any indication that she was co-founding a tech company or providing business consultation. Ms. Patel, the judge addressed her directly, you claim to have been co-founder of a multi-million-dollar company, yet your social media presence during this period suggests you were focused on your regular employment and social life. Can you explain this discrepancy? Naina's composure finally cracked. Social media doesn't reflect everything someone does professionally, but it does reflect someone's priorities and time allocation. If you were genuinely co-founding a major company, wouldn't that be significant enough to mention, even obliquely? The hearing concluded with Judge Morrison delivering a scathing assessment. This court finds the client at the plaintiffs have attempted to perpetrate fraud against Mr. Thompson. The evidence clearly demonstrates that Thompson Productivity Solutions was developed using external investment funding, not community property. The alleged partnership agreements appear to be fabricated after the fact. The claimed technical consultation lacks any credible documentation. She paused, fixing each of the plaintiffs with a withering stare. More troubling is the coordinated nature of this deception. The plaintiffs appear to have collaborated in creating false evidence and manipulating digital records to support their fraudulent claims. The divorce petition stands as filed. Mrs. Thompson is entitled to no portion of Thompson Productivity Solutions or any assets derived from its success. Mr. Martinez and Ms. Patel's claims are dismissed with prejudice. Additionally, I'm referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office for potential criminal prosecution for fraud and conspiracy. As we left the courthouse, I walked past Amara, Jimmy, and Naina without a word. Their legal teams were already discussing appeal options and damage control, but I could see in their faces that they knew it was over. Outside, my real lawyer caught up with me. That was incredibly risky, representing yourself, but brilliant. How did you know they would make those mistakes? Because they underestimated me one more time. They thought I was just a heartbroken husband who got lucky in business. They never considered that someone who could build a $50 million company might also be capable of outmaneuvering them legally. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This isn't over, you'll pay for humiliating us. I deleted it without responding. Some battles were worth fighting, others were just pathetic attempts to maintain relevance by people who had already lost everything that mattered. 6 months after the courthouse victory, I stood in the penthouse office of Thompson Productivity Solutions, looking out over the city skyline. The company had grown to 150 employees, our app had reached 10 million users, and Google's acquisition offer had increased to $120 million. But success felt different than I had imagined. The criminal investigation into Amara, Jimmy, and Naina's conspiracy had resulted in fraud charges for all three. Naina received the harshest sentence, 2 years in prison for digital manipulation and conspiracy. Jimmy faced disbarment proceedings and 18 months in minimum security prison. Amara received community service and probation, her sentence reduced due to her limited technical involvement in creating the false evidence. Their public disgrace had been swift and complete. Jimmy's law firm fired him immediately, his legal career effectively over. Naina lost her tech job and faced permanent damage to her professional reputation. Amara's marketing career stalled as companies avoided hiring someone associated with a high-profile fraud case. But watching their downfall brought less satisfaction than expected. Revenge, I discovered, was a hollow victory when it came at the cost of faith in human nature. The doorbell chimed in my new downtown apartment, a modern space with floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist furniture that reflected my evolved priorities. I had moved out of the cramped space above my computer shop, though I kept the shop running as a reminder of where I started. Mrs. Chen stood in my doorway, holding a plate of homemade dumplings and wearing her usual disapproving expression. "You look too thin," she announced, pushing past me into the apartment. "Rich people forget to eat properly." I laughed, accepting the plate gratefully. Mrs. Chen had become an unlikely friend during the aftermath of my legal battles. Her testimony about my work habits had been crucial in defeating the fraudulent claims, but more importantly, her straightforward honesty had helped restore my faith in genuine human connection. "How's business at the shop?" she asked, settling into my kitchen chair as if she owned the place. "Good. I hired 2 full-time technicians, so I don't have to be there every day anymore." "But you still go?" "Most days. I like the work." Mrs. Chen nodded approvingly. "Rich people who forget where they came from become foolish, you remember." She was right. Despite my wealth and success, I maintained the computer repair shop as both a connection to my roots and a way to help customers who couldn't afford expensive technical services. It kept me grounded in a world where success was measured by solved problems rather than stock valuations. My phone buzzed with a calendar reminder: dinner with Sarah Martinez. Jimmy's sister had reached out 3 months ago, apologizing for her family's actions and expressing genuine regret about the whole situation. Unlike the opportunistic friends who had emerged after learning about my wealth, Sarah wanted nothing from me except the chance to make amends for her brother's betrayal. Our friendship had developed slowly, built on shared experience of family disappointment and the strange bond of people who had witnessed the same moral catastrophe from different perspectives. She was kind, intelligent, and refreshingly honest about money. She worked as a teacher, lived modestly, and had no interest in the lifestyle my wealth could provide. The restaurant she had chosen was a small Italian place in her neighborhood, the kind of establishment where the owner knew regular customers by name and the menu hadn't changed in 20 years. As I walked in, I spotted Sarah at a corner table, reading a book while waiting. "Sorry I'm late," I said, sliding into Tikio. His seat across from her. "Board meeting ran long." "No problem, I was enjoying the peace and quiet." She marked her page and smiled. "How did the Google discussions go?" "They increased their offer again, $150 million now." Sarah whistled softly. "Are you going to accept?" "I'm not sure. The money is obviously attractive, but I like running my own company. Once Google absorbs us, I become just another employee in their ecosystem. So don't sell, you're not exactly struggling financially." Her practical perspective was refreshing. Most people in my life now saw the acquisition as an obvious decision. More money was always better. Sarah understood that success could be measured in terms other than maximum profit. Over dinner, she told me about her students, her weekend volunteer work at the literacy center, and her plans to adopt a dog from the local shelter. Normal life concerns that had nothing to do with my wealth or business success. For 2 hours, I was just William, not the millionaire entrepreneur or the victim of an elaborate betrayal, but a man sharing a meal with a friend. "Can I ask you something personal?" Sarah said as we waited for dessert. "Sure. Do you miss being married? Not to Amara specifically, but the idea of having a partner." I considered the question carefully. I miss the version of marriage I thought I had. The partnership, the shared goals, the feeling that someone truly knew and accepted me. But I don't miss the reality of what my marriage actually was. Which was? A transaction disguised as love. Amara loved the lifestyle she thought I might eventually provide. I loved the woman I imagined she was. Neither of us loved the actual person we were married to. Sarah nodded thoughtfully. Jimmy was similar. He loved the idea of success more than the work required to achieve it. When he saw what you had accomplished, he couldn't handle the fact that his unsuccessful friend had surpassed him. Do you think people can change, or are we all just playing roles until our true nature emerges under pressure? I think most people are capable of growth, but only if they want to change. Amara, Jimmy and Naina showed you who they really were when they thought the stakes were high enough. That doesn't mean everyone will disappoint you, but it does mean you're wise to be careful about trust. As we left the restaurant, Sarah touched my arm gently. "Thank you for dinner," and for giving me a chance despite everything my brother did. You're not responsible for Jimmy's choices. No, but family loyalty runs deep. It would have been understandable if you never wanted to see anyone with the Martinez name again. I walked her to her car, thinking about forgiveness and second chances. Sarah hadn't betrayed me, but she carried the burden of her brother's actions anyway. Her willingness to reach out despite that burden showed a kind of courage I was still learning to appreciate. 3 weeks later, I made my decision about Google's acquisition offer. I declined. Instead, I restructured Thomson Productivity Solutions as a benefit corporation, dedicating 30% of our profits to educational technology initiatives for underserved communities. The decision cost me tens of millions in potential acquisition value, but it gave the company a mission beyond profit maximization. I also established the Morris Thompson Foundation, named after my father, focused on supporting small business development and entrepreneurship education. The foundation's first initiative was a micro-lending program for aspiring entrepreneurs who couldn't access traditional business funding. The computer repair shop became the foundation's headquarters, a symbol of where successful journeys could begin. I hired Mrs. Chen as the office manager, partly because she needed the income, but mainly because her no-nonsense approach to human nature made her an excellent judge of which entrepreneurs deserved support. On the first anniversary of my divorce, I received an unexpected letter. The return address showed it came from the women's correctional facility where Nina was serving her sentence. William, it began, I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I needed to apologize properly, not for legal reasons or to reduce my sentence, but because I owe you honesty after so much deception. I was in love with you, had been since college, actually. Watching you build your company while remaining oblivious to my feelings was torture. When I saw how Amara treated you, how she took your loyalty for granted, I convinced myself that I deserved better from you. But instead of being honest about my feelings, I channeled my frustration into helping you plan revenge against her. I told myself I was protecting you, but really, I was hoping that once she was gone, you might finally see me as more than a friend. When that didn't happen, when you remained focused on the betrayal rather than moving forward with someone who actually understood your worth, I snapped. I couldn't handle being invisible to the man I had helped become successful. The fraud was inexcusable. I destroyed my life and nearly destroyed yours because I couldn't accept that love can't be engineered or manipulated into existence. You deserved honesty from me, not sabotage. I hope someday you can forgive me, not for my sake, but so you don't carry the weight of my betrayal forever. You're a good man, William. Don't let what we did to you change that. I read the letter twice, then filed it away without responding. Forgiveness was still too difficult, but understanding was a beginning. 2 years after the divorce, Thomson Productivity Solutions was valued at $200 million. The Morris Thompson Foundation had funded 847 small businesses and provided technology training to over 3,000 students. I lived comfortably but not extravagantly, drove the same Honda Civic, and maintained the computer repair shop as a reminder of life's fundamentals. Sarah and I had grown closer, our friendship evolving into something deeper and more meaningful. She understood my wariness about trust and motivation, never pushing for more than I was ready to offer. When I finally told her I loved her, it was because I genuinely loved her, not because she represented an ideal or provided something I needed. Are you sure? She asked, smiling but serious. I'm a public school teacher who drives a 12-year-old Toyota, and whose idea of luxury is name-brand cereal. I can't provide the lifestyle your wealth could support. I don't want someone who can provide a lifestyle, I replied. I want someone who can share a life. We married in a small ceremony at the literacy center where she volunteered. Mrs. Chen catered the reception with homemade dumplings and complained loudly about the inadequate kitchen facilities. My wedding gift to Sarah was not jewelry or a honeymoon trip, but a $2 million endowment for the literacy center, ensuring its programs would continue indefinitely. 6 months after our wedding, I received a final communication from my previous life. Amara had written from the community service office where she was completing her court-ordered volunteer work. I saw the announcement of your marriage in the business journal. Sarah looks happy, and you look happy. I'm glad you found someone who appreciates what I was too stupid to see. I know this doesn't matter now, but I did love you. I loved you when we were poor, and I loved you when I found out we were rich. My problem was that I loved the idea of security more than I loved the reality of partnership. I'm not asking for forgiveness or a second chance, I'm just sorry that I taught you to doubt whether love could be unconditional. Some people are capable of that kind of love, even if I wasn't. Be happy, William, you earned it. I showed the letter to Sarah that evening as we sat in our living room, working on a puzzle Mrs. Chen had given us as a housewarming gift. Do you believe her? Sarah asked. I believe she thinks she's telling the truth. Whether she actually is, I'm not sure it matters anymore. Sarah placed another puzzle piece, connecting two sections we had been working on separately. The important thing is that you're not letting her mistakes define how you approach love now. She was right. I had learned to distinguish between love and transaction, between partnership and convenience, between loyalty and opportunity. The lessons had been expensive and painful, but they had made me capable of recognizing genuine connection when it appeared. My phone buzzed with a message from Google's acquisition team. Offer still stands if you change your mind. $175 million. I deleted it without showing Sarah. Some things were worth more than money, and I had finally learned to recognize the difference.